Good day, everyone. I am tasked to present to you and discuss the topic communication and motivation in physical education and sports. I am Maria Alice Antonino, your oral presenter for this topic. First, let's talk about communication. Let us have a little recap about this word. We all know that with communication, our individual and social life phenomenon covers every moment. People for better understanding and recognize each other in problems of jobs in an organization to better resolve, they need a healthy communication skills. That is why communication is considered to be one of the most important factors which is necessary for human to adapt to the environment. It is also the basic skills needed to deal with self-expression and social environment. With communication, we socialize and self-express towards others. The word was derived from the Latin word of communis, and which is used as the equivalent of transmission, refers to a partnership, association, and socialization. In traditional sense, communication function is generally seen as the mutual exchange of something. Communication is the process of mutual transfer of feelings and thoughts, which has been the most important instrument in the formation of accumulation of knowledge, which can be transferred from past to present by the people who are social beings. It is possible to say that communication skills that people have and can improve through education has become even more important within the context of rapidly developing technology and social changes in today's world. And communication skills does not only mean talking, it also includes listening, self-expression like encouragement, asking for help, giving instructions, to express feelings, to complain, to convince, and responsiveness or being responsive, response to compliments, apologies, complaints, and anger. These are all forms of communication, but not everyone can effectively communicate. Effective communication skills can facilitate relationships, all kinds of human relations, and all kinds of professional fields, especially those who work that require more coexistence with people, should have more full knowledge of communication skills. This includes us, physical education teachers, who are more likely honed, designed, made, and we are required for this kind of skills. For example, if communication messages do not understand in the process of classroom management, for physical education teachers, problems will occur in training and lesson, then not being able to find solutions with those problems. Therefore, one of the keys to success in the field of physical education and sport is possible with effective communication as in all other fields. And as a physical education and sport teacher, the profession that we have requires social environment in which more than one people work in coordination for a common purpose. It can be said that it is a necessity for teachers, trainers, and sport managers giving service in the field of physical education and sport have effective communication skills to be successful in their professions. It is believed also that physical education teachers, trainers, and sport managers who can be said to work in environments with intensive human relations should have the abilities to facilitate human relations. Therefore, training physical education teachers, trainers, and sport managers as equipped in this regard is considered to be significant in order to provide communication skills for individuals with whom they have relations. This includes our learners, athletes, coaches, and others in the field. It is important to us physical education teachers to be equipped, trained, and be aware of the importance and significance of communication in our field. Research shows that developing good communication between coaches and players results in better, more effective teams. In addition, Healthy communication, both internal with the public, has been shown to be vital to create successful environments. These are some of a sports organization's administrators' most important responsibilities. So the question now is communication in physical education sports different in all other areas? Generally put, communication involves people interacting with one another to convey information. The most obvious form of communication is linguistic, expressing oneself verbally or in writing. But body language, behavioral mannerisms, and many other interpersonal signals are also forms of communication. These are all evident in physical education and sport field. When thinking about communication in sports, the available methods can seem very specific. A quarterback uses a nod of the head to indicate which direction the receiver should cut. The coach calls a play using a series of gestures known only to his or her team. Although these forms of communication may seem particular to the game, they are analogous to nonverbal cues people use in everyday life. A nod or shake of the head or thumbs up, or any other motion or gesture that people use to convey something to someone else are all similar types of nonverbal communication. As far as interpersonal verbal communication goes, clear and constructive communication between players, coaches, administrators, parents, and others involved with a team parallels positive communication in any other organization. But communication is such a complex process. At any stage of this process, things may go wrong, making the communication less effective. For instance, the sender may not express what he or she wants to say clearly, or the room may be noisy, or the receiver may not understand the words the sender is using. To be effective, teachers have to try to minimize these barriers to communication. We do this in a number of ways. For example, by making sure that the room is quiet and well lit, by speaking slowly and clearly, by only using words which the students should be able to understand. And however, the most important way to overcome these barriers is the two-way communication, in which this means getting regular feedback from the receivers, or the receivers referring to the students in this case. Do they really understand what we are trying to put across? So that is how one way of getting crossing the barriers of communication. Communication does not only take place by means of words. Nonverbal communication or body language is equally important. So this time, let us talk about the two forms of communication, verbal and nonverbal communication. Starting to verbal communication, the importance and its types. Verbal communication, the communication of thoughts, feelings, and desires is done mostly through language, this being the most specific and used method of interhuman communication. And in education, the teacher is the one who always provides an explanation in the class. Good teachers are teachers who become role models in speaking and have good writing skills. Teachers are also required to understand the students' verbal communication and are able to help students improve their verbal ability. Verbal ability refers to one's skills to make use of ideas through words, either oral or written. These skills involve vocabulary mastery to be able to choose the right words to give meaning to the audience. Verbal ability also concerns the ability to organize the words in a way that is logical. Verbal ability is part of traditional construction intelligence. As a teachers, especially in our field, it is very much important to master and to know this kind of skill. In general, the verbal abilities of the teachers are the following. Number one, clear in explaining information. Number two, give obvious explanation. Next, help students to use the ideas in words. Another is help students improve their communication skills. Another, help students understand the meaning of the written language. Then, capable of using analogies in learning, communicate well with parents either orally or written. And lastly, communicate effectively with personnel administration. If we have all of this, then surely learning will take place effectively and smoothly. This time, let's talk about the importance and the types of verbal communication. Importance of verbal communication. There are so many ways in which verbal communication is taken, highlighted. Number one, keeping each other informed. With verbal communication, we can use this to disseminate useful and important communication or information towards others. Next, asking for help and support. Communicating verbally about our problems is the first step to solving them. Number three, making friends. Communicating with others can be the start of a good friendship. Number four, expressing ourselves creatively. Verbal communication can be the means for expressing our imagination. Number five, sharing emotions. We can share emotions as well as factual information with our verbal communication skills. Types of verbal communication. Number one, speaking face-to-face. Here, our words are combined with our gestures, facial expressions, and tone of voice to give a full communication package. Number two, speaking on the phone. Communicating verbally on the phone is an excellent way to reach people far away. Number three, video chat services. The wonders of the internet have enabled us to communicate verbally with people everywhere and to stay in touch with our loved ones across the globe. Number four, writing a letter. Old-fashioned letter writing is an art that will never die. Number five, giving a lecture. This is a key example of the utility of verbal communication in an academic context. Number six, making announcements. Those handy announcements over supermarkets or train stations are key examples of verbal communication. Number seven, leaving a voicemail. Sometimes we can record our verbal communication for our friends, family, and colleagues to pick up later. This time, let's proceed with the other type, which is the nonverbal communication. So what is nonverbal communication? Nonverbal communication is a message expressed differently than through words, and these messages are 4.5 times more rapidly decoded than words. Nonverbal messages can confirm, support, contradict, complete, or replace messages transmitted through words. Each time we communicate, we exteriorize signs and signals, conscious or not, intentional or not, through way of methods such as number one, facial expression such as being shocked, amazement, smile, frowning, blushing, and etc. Next, number two, gesticulatory. This means the movement of the body or the hands, gestures that usually accompany verbal messages to accentuate their content. Orientation. Orientation between the interlocutor and the position of the body during the process of communication. Proximity, the distance between interlocutors, followed by visual contact, whether it occurs, how it occurs, and how long it lasts. Then, touches, a gentle pat on the back, the grabbing of shoulders, and etc. Another is movements of the body, which suggest approval or disapproval, encouragement or discouragement, the interlocutor to continue. Next is exterior aspect, their physical appearance, their clothes, their makeup. Lastly, their intonation, rhythm, and the topic of speech. These are considered elements of paralanguage. Then let's talk about the nonverbal communication in learning. The object of nonverbal communication is different among authors, includes nonverbal communication such as body contact, posture, proximity, facial, facial, body, physical view moments, voice emotion while talking, mistake in speaking, accent. The techniques that can be used to teach nonverbal communication are described as follows. Number one, the learners are invited for discussion about the meaning of the gesture and expression, like expression demonstrated by teacher through images or other material. Number two, the learners imitate both physically and emotions. Number three, the learners are invited to watch the video clip with no sound, discuss body language, relationships, emotions, and feelings, then write the dialogue. The learners make dialogue with the use of gesture and expression only. Number five, the learners polish dialogue based on the results of the imitating. Then lastly, the learners in pairs listen to each other for 30 minutes using only non-verbal response. Therefore, non-verbal communication is a process of generating meaning using behavior other than words. Non-verbal communication operates on the following principles. Number one, it typically conveys more meaning than verbal communication. Number two, more involuntary than verbal communication. Number three, often more ambiguous than verbal communication. And lastly, number four, often more credible than verbal communication. Verbal and nonverbal communication in physical education and sports. During a game in a sport competition, the specific language is a code of visual and adaptive gestures. The success is depending of the consolidated tactical teammates, relations, and synchronization of their actions. Under pressure of time and rapid development of the game, players must take tactical synchronized decisions. In this context, the nonverbal communication is prevalent because during the game, except the timeouts, is no time for words. The connection between the teammates is meaningful in a social and occasionally in an emotionally meaning too. Nonverbal communication usually carries more emotional meaning than words only. In athletes, even for example, the athletes communicate nonverbally while coaches respond with gestures and body movements. Nonverbal communication is a code that has the advantage to be all known and can be delivered at long distance and understood 4.5 times more rapidly than verbal communication. Nonverbal messages could be encoded in gestures or eye contact, such as body movement like speed, direction, proximity, or amplitude, attitude, body shape, facial expression, touching, and many more. Merabians had stated that even 55% of the communication is happening via general language. Having such a wide range of signs and signals, the channels that address nonverbal communication are, in fact, the five senses. The referee signs and signals have meanings for competitors, coaches, and audience, whatever if they speak different languages. Colors, numbers, and marks also have significance in the convention of sport games. The coach of communication style, other than the verbal content, will determine the team working climate. An open climate will inspire trust, enjoyment, and will support the athletes to maintain a good team spirit in training competition. A pleasant and supportive social environment will help sportsmen to take part enthusiastically in training sessions. In conclusion, although verbal communication and non-verbal communication work side by side as part of a larger language system, there are some important differences between the two. They are processed by different hemispheres of the brain. Nonverbal communication conveys more emotional and affective meaning than does verbal communication. Nonverbal communication isn't governed by an explicit system of rules in the same way that grammar guides verbal communication. And while verbal communication is a uniquely human ability, many creatures, including plants, birds, and mammals, communicate non-verbally. In case of physical education and sports, both the way of communication simultaneously used for better communication and express emotion and identity, as it is related with movement and expertise over skills. Practice makes perfect, and so take the time to actively practice these communication skills for educational institution, playground, and workplace success. Active listening, clarity and conciseness, confidence, empathy, friendliness, open-mindedness, giving and soliciting feedback, confidence, respectfulness, and non-verbal like body language, tone of voice, eye contact is are is communication. Now, let's talk about motivation. Let's the motivation in physical education and sports. So what is motivation? As physical education teachers, it is a great asset if we are able to motivate our learners or athletes so that they will participate in all activities with effort and keenness to learn and refine skills. Getting and keeping them motivated is seriously a hard work. Some kids are athletic and some are not. In some days, they are interested, but some days they're not. But first thing first, let us define first motivation. Motivation is the drive to succeed or the desire to achieve something, to be inspired to do something. It is a driving that makes you do something and decide how much effort to put it in. However, for most of us, motivating every single student in our classes try their best, focus, persevere through their struggles, maintain a positive attitude, and enjoy the learning process can feel unattainable and unrealistic. This is because we have different kinds of learners with different attitudes and willingness. Motivation can be seen in the following: the amount of effort put into a task. A motivation can be observed if the player or the learner is taking effort. We can observe if there is an effort while doing the activity or training. Another is how well they direct their focus and effort. Another is how long they stick to a task, especially to one that is very difficult. And lastly, what are they willing to sacrifice for success? Such as, are they willing to sacrifice their time, their time in playing games, their family, the time with their family, and are they willing to sacrifice their effort? Those are some of the things we can observe and realize their perseverance and motivation. Why is it really important? It focuses the performer or improves concentration. It allows the performer to perform more accurately as motivation relates to arousal. And it is very important because it is an aspiration or desire to achieve something. Therefore, in order for us to motivate them so that they can maximize their attainment and hopefully develop a lifelong love for physical activity and learning, we need to have the tools to do so. And learning the types of motivation is an advantage. First, let us distinguish the two types of motivation: the intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Being able to distinguish the two motivation is an important factor that helps us identify our learners' drives and motives and how we recognize and reward attainment. So intrinsic motivation. This kind of motivation is the drive that comes from within. We're talking about the internal desire from within us to achieve something. It brings about different feeling. It is the pleasure that the learners or the athletes get from engaging in or completing the task or activity. The performer is driven to achieve something for the feeling it brings to them. Like pride, satisfaction, sense of accomplishment, and self-worth. Motivation that comes from simply doing the activity rather than to gain external prizes or rewards. That is intrinsic motivation. Rewards such as social rewards associated with playing in a team, satisfaction that comes from overcoming a challenge, and seeing improvements in physical fitness. The other motivation is what we call extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is the drive to perform well or to win in order to gain external rewards. These external rewards may include tangible or intangible rewards. For tangible rewards, it includes certificates, trophies, monies, and medals. Intangible rewards include praises, feedback from parents or the coach itself, applause from the crowd and the friends. Extrinsic motivation is the desire for attention, publicity, or fame. It also means the search for sponsorship or a better contract. Now, different individuals are motivated in different ways, and coaches need to take this information into account. For teaching physical education, we should take into consideration of the following. Number 1, develop activities that build on students' interests. The first step is getting to know your students. You don't always need to rely on competitive team sports in your physical education instruction. If students like to dance, design a dance activity. If you want to develop their collaboration skills in the process, work in team building exercises through partner and group dancing. Number 2, increase opportunities for self-directed learning. Let the students take ownership of their learning by allowing them to choose their personal goals, like doing 4 sets of 25 push-ups and many more. And offer options of how the students can demonstrate knowledge of a task or acquisition of a skills. Number 3, use a task progressions. Before dividing into complex tasks, which will likely intimidate and discourage some of your students, start with simple forms of a skill so the students can build self-efficacy and ability in a non-judgmental way. For example, when introducing students to softball, teach them the fundamentals of throwing and catching, swinging a bat, reading a pitch, running the bases, fielding a grounder, and tracking a ball before engaging them in a real game. Number 4, set up activities that promote success. Don't set your students up for failure by creating unattainable goals like running a miles and miles. Instead, provide activities that they can accomplish with hard work. Ask an athletically gifted students to model the tasks so that students know it is possible. Then, modify the requirements of the activity based on students' strengths and weaknesses. When students succeed, they will be proud of their performance, which can lead to more interest and a willingness to take on more challenging work. In the world of coaching, for intrinsically motivated individuals, coaches must ensure sessions remain enjoyable so that performers will continue to gain satisfaction from taking part. Also, for extrinsically motivated performers, coaches should set goals based on achieving rewards. Coach should make sure that the goals are achievable, or performers may lose interest and become demotivated. Rewards also must be achieved, or performers may lose interest or motivation. So those are the important or highlights topic on communication and motivation in physical education and sports. It is very important for us as physical education teachers in future, if given the chance, as supervisors or administrator in the field of physical education sports to take this into an account, though the communication and motivation in our field. In conclusion, as physical education teachers, it is very important to put in mind this topic because with this, if we are able to practice the right communication and the right motivation for um, our different kinds of learners, then we can achieve or we can provide our learners with quality physical education. I guess that's it. I hope that you have learned something out of the discussion that I have. Again, I am Maria Alisandonet Naranjo, your oral presenter for this topic, communication and motivation in physical education and sports. Thank you and keep safe.